Welcome back to the Daily Wire. Today we're going to be looking into, is the Earth flat? What's happening over in the Ukraine, especially when it comes to Russia? Is World War III around the corner? Who knows?
And what are you thinking? What are you feeling? And why are you thinking and feeling it?
Let's go down a rabbit hole real quick. Let's go down a nice little rabbit hole. What's your thoughts on flat Earth?
No. Let's
Straight away, nah. Didn't it say somewhere in the Bible, like Genesis? I think it's verse 6,
It
something about the
says the circle of the Earth. It doesn't say it's not a sphere.
Yeah.
So a lot of people try to use that to make it like, oh, look, it's an actual flat Earth, but no. Come on, man. The moon, the sun, all these they're spheres. Jupiter, it's a sphere. So is Earth the only odd one out? Like, what's the logic? Like,
there is no logic in that, and I don't understand people with that as well. But there's something about Earth, the flat Earth theory, that sparks my interest. Not the fact that the Earth is flat, because I believe it's a sphere, but Antarctica just keeps bringing up questions, right? A lot of people say it's like an ice wall. And I'm not too sure about that either, right? But at the same time, is it?
Do you know what that reminds me of? You know, the wall in Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
And there's like all these gremlins and stuff on the other side. maybe. Well, look.
Because their thing is like, so it's an ice wall, and then there's other continents outside that. And for some weird reason, no one really gives you the ultimate reason why, but someone just gives you the reason on why we're not, or everyone's keeping it under hush-hush.
You know what? A lot of these theories, what I hate about them is some of the stuff. I'm not saying that there's an ice wall or there isn't or anything like that, but some of the stuff that comes out of those pages might be plausible. But because there's so much junk, it sort of just puts it under this umbrella of wacko conspiracy.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so it's almost like their fake news might have 1% real news inside, and just because 99.9% of it is fake, they just kill that 1% that might actually be important.
That might actually be onto something, right?
Yeah.
Well, so another thing again, so I heard that a lot of the satellites up there aren't as what is depicted in movies and how it's depicted in general in the news. They're actually held up by like high altitude balloons. Now, that makes sense because when you do talk about gravity, right? And something that's in Earth's atmosphere, right? It's constantly falling into Earth, which means it's going to be constantly having to have thrusters to push it back out into orbit again, right? I don't know if it's plausible for us to have thrusters on the satellites themselves for them to be constantly pushing themselves from falling, right? So I did see this little rabbit hole bit, and then that person was bringing it to flat Earth. And I'm like, oh, okay, I don't really think the Earth's flat. It's not because there's a big dome where you can't get out of. But that does make sense. And I'm very surprised at why they haven't said anything about that, or why they haven't ever depicted them as being on high altitude balloons, because they're in extremely low Earth orbit, but they're still high enough to do everything that we need for them to do.
Yeah, I think there's so much stuff that we're accustomed to seeing as if we know, I guess, what's actually happening. But the truth is, lots of this stuff, if we don't actually see it, we'll never even know it exists. Like, we rely so heavily on what we see on the internet, what we see on TV, what we see on, all these platforms, as if we actually know what's going on or the extent to the technologies that they might have, when they might have shit that we can't even imagine. We've never even actually conceived.
True.
And the likelihood of that is quite high because, like we said, I think one of the other times, the governments, their technology, just a no-brainer, is way, way more advanced than anything that we
100%.
have. So it's a really high probability that this stuff that if we saw it, it's like, I haven't seen it in a movie. I haven't seen it on the internet. I haven't seen it on my Facebook feed. What the fuck is that thing?
Exactly. And you know, people go down the rabbit hole of what the fuck that thing is, and it just gets spun off in so many directions. Again, so did you really think they landed on the moon? And we're talking about America, just the first moon landing. Because even Buzz Aldrin, you can see him in so many other videos saying, we didn't land on the moon. It makes sense though, because they were in that big space race between Russia and America. And what if America really wasn't as fast-paced getting to the moon as we all thought? So they photoshopped everything, right? But it was really the Russians that got there first.
Look, I have no doubt that with the technology that we do have, it's possible to reach the moon. Even back then.
Yeah.
Whether they did or they didn't, I guess to me personally, like, who really cares? Like, I don't care if he did or he didn't. But definitely, I think that scientifically it's possible.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's going to be a time. This is my own sort of little theory. I reckon that at some point they're going to tap into uploading your actual consciousness into something computerized.
It's like that Prime TV show. Have you seen it? It's called Upload.
Yeah, something like
so
that.
When you die, instead of going to the spiritual heaven,
exactly,
right? Exactly. They upload you to the
hard drive.
The hard drive.
And that's really, you know, the metaverse is just another extension of that. Today it's an avatar. Tomorrow, you know, this stuff, it keeps on getting more and more advanced. So, and the more advanced it gets, the more it requires of you. Like, you know, you have all these privacy issues and all of this and all of that, and you think your phone's watching you, but the more it advances, the more it actually requires more of your individual essence, if that makes sense. So I can see in the foreseeable future, and they've already, I think there's a NBC news program that said this back in like 2012 or 2013.
Really?
It basically says by 2025, everyone's going to have a biometric implant to buy, sell, get into places, carry your ID. You know, you're in the back of an ambulance, and that's all they need to find out who you are.
That shit's scary, dude. That shit's really scary.
Not for me.
Not for you?
As in not for me. I'm not getting biometric.
No way. I'm not all for getting chips implanted inside me. I feel like they're so easy for them to follow us and hear everything we say off our phones anyway. You know, for them to have like a chip inside us as well, to know absolutely everything about our bodies. Plus, doesn't matter. You can't turn that fucker off. You can't throw that thing away. No fucking way, man. There's no going back after that. And, you know, they might bring it to the point where they implement it to the point where you can't do anything without it.
You know what?
So what's going to happen then? I'm gonna go bush. I'm gonna go walkabout.
You know what I mean? You, definitely. You know what I love about the World Wide Web, because this is all the World Wide Web, right?
Mm.
So a spider, it builds its web, and all the flies and all the insects, they get stuck in the web. The spider goes off for a bit, and then later on it comes back and it says, "Look, I got food." It's really the same concept. It all builds around us, all the surveillance, all the, you know, the 5G, 6G, 7G, all the iPhone related stuff, all the privacy issues. It slowly builds around.
Yeah.
And you can't really stop it. And then one day, just under the right circumstances, when the right problem erupts, worldwide, the right economic crash or the right war, whatever the case may be, all of a sudden you have all this infrastructure around you that was once used for convenience, but now it's used to lock you in a cage.
Wow.
And that's what they're doing with smart cities and stuff as well. Everything is going hyper, like long gone are the days where you can even flee into the wilderness, like you said, or go underground. Now they just have infrared drones. They can see everything that's happening all the time. And they've built this largely by putting everyone into cities. So there was like this move over the last 50 to 70 years, people moving from farmland and from acreages,
Yep.
and all congregating in city areas. So after they're in the city areas, and now the people that have made a lot of money in the actual economic hubs, they're just like Bill Gates, for an example, is buying up all the farmland in America. He's got like shitloads of farmland, right?
I think it's got a couple 100 acres or some shit. Yeah.
So they start to buy it all around you, and then all of a sudden, the actual land, like the God-given land, it's owned by very few people, and the rest of the insects, so to speak, are in the cities where there's mass hyper surveillance. And give it another 20, 40 years,
Dude.
there'll be shooting drones. And
This is how I see everything's going to lay out, right? Okay, you take, for example, over in China, how they've already got that social system, right? Where they rank
facial
everybody.
recognition.
The facial recognition. Well, okay, so your iPhone itself actually takes like infrared photos of your face constantly. And you don't realize it, right? It's probably other phones too. Anything that's got facial recognition on it is probably constantly taking photos of your face.
Not surprised at
Right,
all.
not surprised. Now, over in China, how they've already got that social system built up. So if you've got like a certain level of percentage on that social system, you can't go away. You can't get loans. You can't do anything. Like you're completely stuck, right? And so let's talk about who's going to be in power, right? I know for a fact it's going to be the BRICS nations, right? So we've already got France who's said to South Africa, please take us to your next BRICS meeting. France is a part of NATO. They're going to switch sides. Let's talk about what just recently happened yesterday. So over in the Ukraine. So what happened is there's four regions of the Ukraine yesterday.
And Russia took them all over now.
Took them all over because all the leaders of those four spots of the Ukraine have gone up to Russia and already signed the treaties. So now they are a part of Russia now, and then you could see them chanting Russia, 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 right? And then what does Zelensky do? This bloke, right? So he goes so Putin goes to the Ukraine and says, now that I've signed those four people over to me, it's the best thing for you is to stop whatever you're doing, lay down your arms, and just stop fighting.
He's such a boss.
Because if you don't, I'm going to bring the full amount of the Russian military to your doorstep, right? So Zelensky, he hears that, doesn't lay down, and what does this little fucker do? He does a signing briefing, right? And in this signing briefing, he signs this piece of paper asking to join NATO and sends it over to NATO. Now, is NATO going to accept that? I don't know. But in all cases, if they do, World War III straight away. Like that. This is very. It's very scary. It's very terrifying.
World War III's on Illuminati card game, so it's definitely.
I mean, it's definitely going to happen. It's bound to happen. Like people's egos in general, it's bound to happen, right? And it does scare me a lot, especially with a lot of the BRICS nations. Just how many of them right now? You've got a lot of people in in Africa right now that are like African nations that are throwing away the American dollar and not using the American dollar anymore, which is fine. You know, like the West has been gouging fucking Africa for centuries, right? And they're looking for other partners now. It was bound to happen, dude. And so, of course, they're going to be going over to like Russia and the BRIC nations. You know, South Africa is already with them.
See, I reckon that the New World Order, in whatever shape that it takes, is going to be built by the very thing that they're trying to avoid. It's going to come as
the peace offering instead of war, right?
The peace offering instead of war. And that's what's almost genius about
That's probably going to happen
people.
after World War III has already started.
I think so too. I think it will happen.
To stop the war.
Yeah. So what's genius about whoever's pulling the strings is, and they've always done it. They've done it like for the last maybe 30, 40, 50 years, but they provide, they start the problem, then they provide you with the solution.
Yeah.
So it's really the same thing over and over again, but now you have all these people that have sort of caught on to it, but they haven't caught on to the next playing card, the one that actually brings into fulfillment or ushers in the New World Order. They're all very anti-New World Order, but when the wars come and, you know, everything starts, they'll be the very people that potentially might be calling for it. And that's why, for me personally, because I don't go based on anything that I see, you know, on the internet or the news or any opinion that I gather from external sources. For me, it's always been just this time where there's going to be this mark of the beast. And that's ancient actual prophecy that marks the beginning to the end of
It's got to be that chip.
The world.
It's got to be that chip.
It's going to be something that enables, it's definitely going to be a technology that enables buying and selling.
Yeah. I mean, with that one world currency, and it's probably going to be cryptocurrency, which makes sense, right?
And right now, cryptocurrency is ironically used as, you know, you don't want to be under the actual economy and, you know, all the fluctuations and whatever. Oh, look, I'm safe. I got crypto. No one really knows who started cryptocurrency, by the way. His name's something Satoshi.
Are you talking about
this Japanese guy that started Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. Are you saying he started cryptocurrency in general? Did he?
No, no one actually knows who he was. He just started out of the blue and someone gave him this certain name. So no one actually knows who's behind Bitcoin at all. It's a mystery.
Oh, wow.
They have a theory that it's some Japanese guy and blah, blah, blah. But
yeah, but it's not. It's if you've got a theory about who it is, it's not. It's not that person.
Exactly.
No way.
So somewhere on the earth,
yeah,
whoever actually started it, he's super, super rich. He's probably richer than our whole country, especially if he can just make Bitcoin out of his ass.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, Bitcoin's there's only a limited supply, and that's what makes it so valuable at the same time. So you can't buy anymore. People can mine it, but I think as you're still mining it's more like earning a Bitcoin.
Even mining it, I used to have a neighbor and he had like a few computers and he mines it and he gets like 0.000, I don't know what, every 3 or 4 days. But what's mining? Like, what are you mining into? Because I don't get this stuff at all.
It's not actually mining. So it's like, for example, where so it's a blockchain, right? It's a blockchain, and in the blockchain, you need each computer to verify what's happening. Okay, so if you give your computers to go and work for the blockchain, it's like an employment system, you know, where we go to work and shit. But it's like that, but with computers.
You're working for the aliens, the unseen aliens.
Yeah. Well, yeah, if you want to put it like that. But like, so you'll give up your computers. Your computers will basically do and help confirm a lot of the transactions and stuff like that. And eventually, over time, you'll earn a certain percentage. So you'll get
The
paid.
aliens give you a little cut.
Yeah, a little cut. A little cut. That's what it is. So it's not mining essentially, but people just put it up as mining so people can have more of an idea what the fuck's going on. But it's basically putting your computers to slave labor and you getting paid for it.
See, if I was the king of the world,
Yeah.
I would tell everyone out there, like, just go to a mountain, get a pickaxe, and mine real shit, because, like, this stuff, what is it? Like, what's it actually? Because I'm used to always trying to find the origin of things.
Yeah.
Right. So I have this habit of just trying to come to the purest form of where things begin, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, I was watching this thing the other day and it said all the microchips are in Taiwan. Even things like what powers a computer or what powers... It's really hard to explain, but what is it like? Because there's a lot of, if you ask, let's say, an IT guy, what's a computer, he's going to always tell you what they put together that they already have that powers a computer. But what actually is software, if that makes sense? Like, where does the energy come from that actually, or where does it start off from, if that makes sense? Does that make sense?
Yes and no. Like I can tell you what software is, but like...
Or the internet, for an example. What's the internet?
The internet is a bunch of computers talking to each other. So that's why they also call it the World Wide Web, because, for example... it's not like the internet is up in the air and shit like that. So if I post something up on Instagram, right, for example, that photo is going to be headed over to a secure physical location where the Instagram servers are held, which is basically a giant fucking computer which holds a bunch of information. And every time you want to talk to every time you want something from Instagram, it's going your little computer, your phone. It's just going to be an exchange. Hi, how's it going? Can I dip into your files? Can I have a quick look? And it's just going to give it to you straight away. That's the World Wide Web.
Now, if you think of it,
it's just communication.
If you think of what almost powers it, so there's something that connects to, let's say, the satellites.
Yeah.
And it's obviously invisible, whatever makes reception.
Yeah. So it's the same thing.
And it transmits into the air, right?
Yeah.
And it goes somewhere, that satellite sends it back down to wherever it's going to go. But how would you create, let's say, this is question, how would you create the whatever transmits it into the air? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, how can I put it? It's probably don't take me word for word on this. But as we know, again, especially when it comes to like talking, especially with like radio waves, they're basically waves that you send through the particles that we have around us.
All right, I have something good for this. Yeah.
Okay. But that's basically it. That's like, you take radio waves and then you got to build on top of that when it comes to internet connection and shit. Like it's fundamentally the same thing. That's why you can't visibly see it. You know what I mean?
So radio waves.
Yeah.
There's this guy. His name's Nikola Tesla.
Of course. No, you got it right. Yeah.
He's invented electricity.
What do you say though? If you wanted to understand the universe, you have to just go by the rules of 369.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But basically, he started, like, he created the first radio, and don't quote me on that. I don't actually know, but he was a very early founder of all this technological stuff. And if you read his memoirs, he basically said that he himself in his mind was tapping into higher frequencies, and they were telling him exactly what to do in terms of putting everything together.
I heard about that shit.
He just created it based on what he was hearing. So he was like a human radio before any radios, before anything. So now the question is, what's more important, or what's more beneficial in terms of tech, to tap into the same frequencies that he was tapping into?
But who are you talking to?
Well, that's the big question.
See now that goes into another rabbit hole when it comes to the Nazis back in the day, and a lot of people were saying they were working with 5-dimensional beings.
Yeah.
You hear that shit?
Yeah.
Right? And that's how they were able to be so far ahead of everyone else. They came out with the first jet engine, didn't they not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's,
and you know, if medically, if they didn't do all the atrocities they did in World War II, we would not be where we are medically today.
Yep.
This is fucked up.
They also started the first submarines. The Russians.
The U-boats.
Yes,
U-boats.
yes. So you have all these pioneers of big tech and military tech, and they're tapping into higher frequencies. We're just, on the very, very bottom, and we just get what they give.
We're getting the scraps.
We get the scraps.
Yeah. We're also getting the scraps from the vibrational like what we take in on a daily basis, especially like on social media and shit, is very low. Low vibrational.
Very low, yes.
Very low vibrational, but we feed on it for some weird reason, right?
Do you know what's interesting about stars? Stars actually emit energy that you can't see.
Yeah, of course. It's like that was like the world's already constantly being hit with radiation and waves from our star, the sun.
Biblically, stars are associated with angels as well, and angels are associated with wisdom and knowledge. So you find, if you put them together, there's like the tech science side, and then you have the other side of people. You know, those people that are into angel numbers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They've discovered something about the actual frequencies rather than just what the frequencies produce.
Yeah.
In terms of make it materialize.
I think that's what Tesla was talking about. 369. 369. There's something to do with 3, 6, and 9. And it's got to do with like vibrations and waves and shit like that. And a lot of people would like look at you and think you're an idiot, but like they're the idiot for not looking into this shit.
So he started all this stuff, and it was based on, like we said, these higher frequencies, these radio waves, and his mind was the actual radio that enabled him to then create exactly whatever it is that he created. But why don't people, rather than just looking at tech and enjoying the tech, why don't we as people start to search out and explore tapping into higher frequencies like he did? But I'm not saying it's something that, you sort of have to understand exactly what the frequencies are, because really what it is that your brain or your soul is like a medium. And that medium carries words.
Yeah.
And those words, you live off them.
100%.
Whether they're good words, whether they're bad words. So it's about getting the words and getting the most powerful words and letting them fill that cup.
Yeah.
And then bringing about what comes from them. But first you have to put the link between what's spiritual, what's scientific, what's stars, and you know what? You'll be surprised, because when you limit yourself to just science, let's say, and what some academic has written, you can only grow as much as
they grow.
Yeah. But when you're free to search out from here, then it becomes endless, and it opens up almost quite literally, just like it opened up for Tesla, it opens up realms. And then you start to see a bigger picture as to what existence is and where you fit into existence. And again, what words you're going to take in.
Now, do you remember when Trump was still president, right? And he made the CIA release all those documents?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a few documents in there, and it was called the Gateway Process. Heard of it?
Remind me.
So basically, back in the 1960s, 1950s, and shit like that, they were doing some really weird experiments when it comes to meditation, and we're talking deep, deep meditation shit, right? And on these pieces of paper, I think I've got them somewhere, man. I've got to find them. I've got the PDFs somewhere. I've got to find them. Anyway, so it outlines what our universe is, and they were getting information of higher beings. We don't know really what they are. They didn't explain it. It was actually blacked out. But that proves to you that the government is already on this shit. You know what I mean? They've been doing this shit for fucking years. Centuries, man. And it brings me back again, our ancient ancestors were onto this type of shit too. They were onto this type of shit before the science shit that we've got today.
But with different methods. That's the only thing that changed.
Hugely different methods. Like, have you? There's some places like out in South America, and also in America, especially in the Grand Canyon, where they've got these stories of these people where they would come down, and there was ancient gateways, right? But this gateway is just like a big piece of stone, yeah, and they would walk right through them, which tells me again today, what's that? Sound harmonics. It's not sound harmonics, but it's there's an actual term for it where you match the same vibration as the thing that's
alignment.
Alignment, yeah, if you want to call it like that. But like your body's actually able to match the same vibration as that physical object, and then that physical object becomes more like liquid, really, where you can pass right through it. You
know what? Even the ancients, particularly the ancient pagans and all those sorts of cultures, what they would do was they would align with stars. So, the king would have, he would be the king. He would have all these astrologers, sorcerers, all these types of magicians around him.
Yeah.
And they would, even on flags, you still see it on flags, like every single national flag, most anyway, they have a star on them. So it was all about aligning with stars and have those stars write out your destiny for you.
Well, there were so many ancient people that already knew about the stars and the star constellations. Like the ancient Sumerians knew a lot about what was it? The Sirius system, and so many different systems. They already knew what they were. It was like, are you guys kidding me? You guys were like one of the first civilizations that we had.
So in the book of Enoch, which is a really, really good read, you find this account, and it happens around the time of Noah's flood.
Yeah,
where these ancient angels basically came down to Earth. And they intermixed with humans, and particularly human women, right? And in doing so, they exchanged all these different types of ancient occult knowledge. It was almost like the birthing of science, right? Because science, whatever they gave, so they taught about stars and constellations, they taught about roots and medicines, they taught about all this different weaponry, gold and metals, rocks, which ironically microchips are just made out of rocks.
Yeah.
And they left. And
Sound like aliens to me, dude.
Well, they are aliens. What are aliens?
Just
Aliens
something
are
that's
just
not from this planet,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
So they came, they taught humanity all these crafts,
Yeah.
and they left. And
It
then
sounds like the end of the Anunnaki legends.
very
similar, right?
Very similar.
You know, it blows my mind that these Sumerians, right, at the first start of their civilization, when they start talking about the Anunnaki, they see them as gods, and then towards the end of it, they see them more as beings from the sky that taught them science.
So there's a really, really deep correlation when you actually start, because this account of Enoch that I'm telling you about, this is Genesis 6. So this is the 6th book in the Bible.
Yeah.
Creation being like the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd book. So this was very early in ancient history.
Wow.
And if you have a look at the 3rd chapter,
Yeah.
you have this imagery of God speaking to the serpent.
Oh, yeah.
And this is where two lineages start. Two lineages that are going to flow down all of history. And God basically, he condemns the serpent, and he says, I'm going to put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. So he's saying, I'm going to make 2 separate lineages. One for myself and one that's yours. And obviously humans are in the mix, and we get to choose exactly what we're going to choose. And the one that's characterized by God is carried in blood covenant. So that blood covenant goes all the way down to Jesus, which is the whole reason why, he had to come and be crucified and all that sort of thing. And the other one belongs to Lucifer, light bearer, the tree of knowledge, all those things that are associated with him. So you find when you go down to the book of Enoch, if you stop looking at the physical things completely, you see that there's a game going, right?
Yeah.
And the game is basically to corrupt human DNA through knowledge, because those angels, and what I found really, really funny about this is that you have many people that they have like alien abduction stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I went to sleep and, I got caught up in a flying saucer, and they did all these experiments on me and all this sort of stuff. So what those ancient angels did was they interbred with human women, creating giants. So like these hybrid humans.
Yeah.
Now, whether...
Well, they were actually found to be quite true.
Yeah.
Now, because what was it? There was 7 different species of human back in the day. You've got us that are Homo sapiens, basically the last. Well, all of these 7 come together, and then you've got Neanderthals, and you've got so on and so on. There's a lot more, but so the giant one, weren't they like 14 to 15 feet tall?
And 6 and 7 fingers.
Yeah, well, what was it? The Anunnaki
David and Goliath.
Anunnaki were also told, or also to be taught, that they were about the same height. Which tells me, were the Anunnaki the Nephilim, when the Nephilim had children, were not, I don't think that would actually work physically, but like splicing the two DNAs together to create hybrids, that makes sense.
Yeah, so biblically, the whole reason why they wanted to corrupt the DNA was because the bloodline of the Messiah had to be pure. So it's almost like if there's these 2 sides, you can't see them, but they're manipulating things. The best way the devil can stop the reign of Christ, or the coming of Christ, which is the Messiah, and have everyone for himself, is by actually corrupting human blood. And what's the best way to do that? Through the angels. Does that make sense? And that's where the Nephilim and the fallen angels, and interestingly enough, what it says is basically when the giants died, their spirits were left to roam the earth. And you see that imagery again when you keep on going all the way down. You see that demons have hierarchies. So it's almost like this fallen angel did this, and then the hybrid was born. And now this hybrid energy is left roaming the earth. So that links with ghosts and hauntings and frequencies and energy and information.
Yeah.
And if you keep on going down, like there's so many elements to this, like even the logo on the apple, symbol, right?
Yeah.
There's so many. You start to really see the web, right?
Was the Apple? Are you deferring that to like
the Apple logo?
Is that what you're deferring
logos?
That to?
You see it.
Because it looks like a bite has been taken out of it.
Exactly.
Is that what you mean?
So creativity comes from the spirit.
Because you never know with symbols these days. You know, I saw this thing today. I think it was Pinocchio, right? And it was when they were at the pub part of Pinocchio or the bar. And this guy's literally talking about taking little boys over to Fantasy Island. Was it Fantasy Island?
Is that Jeff Epstein?
Yeah, was it Fantasy Island or Mystery Island? I don't know what it's called, but
Epstein Island.
Epstein. No, I think that was just I think that wasn't the name of the island. I think everyone just gave that the name because that was Epstein and shit. But they were literally talking about it in like this little kid movie. And I was like, you're kidding me. That's fucked. Like you never see this shit. And like at the same time, why? Why would they put that out there for everyone to see?
You see it as well in Beauty and the Beast, Snow White, Cinderella. Like Snow White, what happens to Snow White? She meets with a witch. She takes a bite out of an apple. She falls into the sleep of death. And then her Prince Charming comes and saves her with a kiss.
Where's the thing in that?
So it's Adam and Eve imagery. So it's almost like that same symbolism.
Yeah.
The witch was the snake. The Prince Charming is, I guess, look, I wouldn't say that it represents Christ, although there's, again, imagery in the Bible of Christ being the bridegroom and the church being the bride, the universal bride.
Yeah.
But you see it in everything. You see that same imagery.
Wow, dude.
So,
but I also thought I've heard this one that all the princess, all the Disney princesses, all suffer from psychological problems. So you've got Beauty and the Beast, and she's got Stockholm syndrome, and you've got fucking. I'm a loss for words after the rest. I had them all up here, and they're gone.
You know, there's, I guess, you see in every single, these days it's changing.
Yeah.
But most movies and plots, right, have always been like Prince Charming goes, saves his damsel in distress from an evil snake, an evil wizard, and dragon, whatever. And I think that sort of stuff started at the turn of the, not at the turn of the century, it would have started a lot earlier, but because there was a lot more TV, a lot more shows, people watching, it started to shape the culture in a certain way.
Yeah.
But then when a lot of people, because these are also God-given instinctive desires, if that makes sense. They're written on everyone's conscious in some way, right? So lots of people got into that, but then when they went into the real world, and this is where escapism comes in as well.
Okay.
When they went into the real world and like, you know, the guy broke your heart, or, you know, she was no good and she did this or did that, people build this disappointment, right? And then out of that disappointment, they start to take that instinctive desire and they start to build on top of it. So now, almost out of resentment, it's sexist to have, the male as the caregiver or whatever, to have that image of the superhero. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a flow of cultural transformation based on fairy tales. So essentially a lie.
Yeah.
Yet it's reached so deep into lots and lots of people that it's actually shaped their character. Something interesting about fairies. What are fairies, right? Fairies are
like Peter Pan.
women
fairies.
with wings, right? Biblically.
Oh yeah, well I guess the majority of fairies that you do think about is a woman with wings, but I think it's because of most people like start thinking about Tinkerbell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Biblically, ironically, I think it's Zechariah 5.
Yeah.
There's depiction of women with wings, but they're spirits.
Okay.
And they symbolize a certain energy that they bring into the land.
Yeah.
And that energy is fairy tales. So people are living a fairy tale. They're living a dream.
Fairy tale. I just made that connection, eh?
Yeah.
Okay,
So people in this land, they're living a dream, and out of that dream comes a lot of wickedness
Yeah.
because everyone's almost drunk.
Well, because there's so much shit that you think's really
desire.
innocent, and then when you do a deep dive into it, it's really sinister. Like, well, ring around the rosy, fucking pop the posy,
Look at every single Hollywood star, particularly, let's say the females, right? And everyone has different opinions about everything. So this isn't to have a go at anyone's lifestyle, but they start them off when they're 15, 16 as very innocent. They're doing gospel or, this or that. And then as they grow up, it becomes more and more obscene, right? In terms of it becomes more sexualized.
Oh yeah, okay.
It becomes more.
Yeah.
So that I don't think it's done by accident. It's because when they start off innocent, doing what's seemingly pure, they build a fan base, and that's obviously capitalized on by Hollywood. They fund it and they make them really, really famous.
Yeah.
And then after, as they grow up, they have that fan base that they've built, in their school years or whatever, that whole pool of women looking up to this person like an idol. And then they shift the character of the person. So it's almost dictating or defining normality through what they see, but it's over time. It's a real flow.
Yeah, you're right. You think about all of them, eh? And you think you initially just think it's because of their age, right?
Yeah.
That's the initial thought. Yeah, it's only because of their age. So you got like Miley Cyrus, who started up in Disney, and then you got Ariana Grande, who started on Nickelodeon.
Yep.
And then even Katy Perry, wasn't she like a Christian?
Yep.
A Christian.
Yep.
She was a Christian
Yep.
singer before she got big, eh?
Yep.
Wow.
So it's like a very, very systematic.
Yeah.
And you know what? It's very sinister if it's pre-thought.
Oh, real fucked up.
It's really, really sinister. And it happens to every single person that they put into Hollywood. And it's mind programming. So it's very indirect mind programming.
Takes a long fucking time for it to
and
happen
it
too.
shapes, well, it's a long game. Everything
Yeah.
that they've done since the beginning, it's a really long game.
Like if you really sit there and think about it, it's pretty fucked up. Like it would be hard even for you to like think about, what am I going to show my kids? What's okay for them? Is it okay for them to go with the narrative that everyone else is doing today? Or
So there's a book written by this guy. I'll put it up on the screen later.
yeah.
And it basically outlines the steps to complete demoralization.
Okay.
Okay, it's
Demoralization.
for the purpose of making a society disintegrate from within. And there's a certain order to it. It goes first, I think, first get everyone into cities. Second, shape the culture. Third, it's got a few steps.
Yeah.
And basically the end game is once the steps are fulfilled, and it takes about 2 or 3 generations to do,
Yeah.
then the government takes over. Because
Okay.
everyone loses their notion of truth. Everyone loses their notion of reality. So everyone's got this individualism. And then after that, government just comes in and says, yous are all a bunch of whack jobs. We're going to define what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think one of the steps, actually, first one was destroy the family unit.
Well, it also sounds very familiar to. Do you ever remember watching that video of that guy talking about how they were going to be the new prison system?
Yeah.
The new prison system where they get the prisoners to guard themselves and look after themselves and shit. That's basically what a city is, right?
Yeah.
Concrete jungle. Dude, it's a bit fucked up.
And when everyone's in a city, it's very easy to integrate whatever the overall ideologies that are pushed from the top into each and every single person.
Yeah.
And of course, that's a lot easier now with the tech, because we sort of learn how to be in context of the world through what's already normalized, and it just comes to us through our screen.
Yeah.
But traditionally, it was up to the father and the mother to do that.
Well, yeah, of course.
And in context of a family, right?
It's a lot easier for them to manipulate people these days, especially because everyone's glued to their screens.
Exactly. I guess for me personally, I mean, I'm on my screen a lot as well.
Yeah. Like, I can't say shit to that because we all are.
What profit do I get in terms of my own existence by, just flicking up and down all the time, all this rubbish? And I think, did you know that apparently 60% of people don't have an inner dialogue? So they actually
that blows my mind. Do you have an inner dialogue?
I have a very, I don't stop thinking.
Yeah, but like a dialogue. Do you have like a dialogue?
Yeah.
Someone speaking inside your head. Yeah, me too. I've only ever really because I've asked around, I've only ever had like one person say, "Oh, no, I actually think with words." It's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So when you say to
I
someone,
feel sorry for you in a way, but like for them too, they might feel sorry for us. Like you got someone speaking inside your head. How does that work?
do you know what when I discovered that, I thought, far out, all the people that I've ever told, what were you thinking? I wasn't thinking. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, you gotta think to yourself. These people, like before words, right? What was going through their head before we had words? Like, because it wouldn't be words, right? Or like before they even learned what words are, what's going through their head?
You know what? Words were not that important, I reckon, back then, because people were a lot simpler.
No, I know. But like, even when you're a baby, right? And you're a kid, say you're a kid, right? You obviously still have to think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, would it just be intention? I think it would just be intention. And the feelings. You would be thinking with intention and feelings, because you wouldn't be thinking in a dialogue. You would have someone speaking inside your head, or because you wouldn't know what words are. You wouldn't know what the English language is. So it has to be that.
See, I think that because of the over influx of things that we're overexposed to,
Yeah.
the wave is a lot bigger. The wave of not just words, but if it's not words, then it's pictures, because we're really comprised of words and pictures.
Oh, yeah, okay. I didn't think about the whole picture bit. Yeah. You're right.
I think that really makes everything that we are, because humans, I mean, help me out.
Yeah.
Words and pictures.
I think
And feelings.
I think I don't think it's words, pictures, and feelings. I think it's more just like memories and
Memories are pictures.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, you got me there. And just perception, right?
So
The awareness, because what I think, we're not the we are the awareness behind our perception. That's who we are.
Yeah, I believe that too.
We're only there to be aware of things and understand that I am there.
But the awareness is almost like the quietest part. Most of the time, I think
because it gets so put on top, and people don't realize people don't realize that they are the awareness behind their perception of what everything's going on. Everyone's stuck at perception. Everyone's stuck at what I'm feeling, like the emotions that. Here's a good thing. All right, so a lot of people go about their life thinking their emotions and their thoughts are themselves.
Yep.
Really? When it's not true.
Wrong.
Just because you have an evil thought that come into you doesn't make you an evil person.
Exactly.
Just because you have hatred for somebody doesn't mean that you're a shit person.
Yep.
That's just the emotional reaction that you get, or it's especially with thoughts, right? It's like a big pool of thoughts, and everyone is tapping into that big pool of thoughts, right? And it's just your awareness that tells you whether you should act on that thought or not.
Yep.
Right? But a lot of people feed into that and just go off the first thing that goes into their head. Or that's like, you know how you've got those people that are ruled and controlled by their own emotions? It's like their whole life is ruled by emotions. And they're very reactive to whatever happens.
I'm with you 100% on that. But now people that struggle in their soul or whatever, that's because they have all these elements. They haven't separated, or they can't separate themselves from whatever's going on in there.
That's what meditation helps you do, though, is being able to separate that stuff. But a lot of people like yourself, you're able to do that anyway.
Yeah, so I think where there's an over-influx of
intake
content.
Yeah, content. Too much going on at once.
Moving inside you, that's when you lose it and you break. And that happens to a lot of people. And so I think there's a few levels to this. I think that the first thing you have to think is, why am I thinking what I'm thinking? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling? It's happened to all of us. We meet a certain person, let's say. This is just a hypothetical example. And something about the person, we feel a certain thing about them, and maybe annoys us, or it makes us extra happy, or whatever the case may be. Could it be that maybe you've encountered someone subconsciously who reminds you of that person that you're meeting now, but maybe in the past?
100%, bro.
And
Deja
you're
vu.
feeling a deja vu energy from that person, and that energy is either troubling you or the other way around or whatever. But think about that. That's just a hypothetical example with everything. And I'll tell you, what I found is you start to realize that everything is nothing. You realize that you're just like a sponge, and that sponge has been run through lots of different elements over time, whether it's people or circumstances or experiences, and it's almost created a mush.
Yeah.
Whatever that mush is, it's not completely dust, it's not completely liquid, it's not completely whatever the case, it's just anything and everything, and it's just filled you. And then once you realize that, it's almost like you realize, wow, now there's nothing. Like all this stuff that was in my head, that was in my thoughts or emotions or whatever, it's just nothing at all. Just moments and fragments of time. And the thing about time is that nothing ever repeats itself. So your memories, or this is how I think of my memories personally, as good or bad as they may be, they're dead.
That's
Never coming back.
100%.
Good or bad, it's never ever coming back. Now, a lot of people like to, reminisce and live on the past, and I remember when I did that, but that starts to weigh you down, because if your whole life is like a still time lapse, then you by default are carrying extra weight into the new. And the thing about this bag is you have to carry both the good and the bad. You can't just carry the good. People like to just carry the good. They like to just remember their pinnacle, whatever that may be. But to actually be fresh and clear, you have to let go of the whole bag and you have to be weightless. Bruce Lee said, "Be like water, my friend, weightless." No weight.
That's good, bro. Thanks for watching today. Tell us what you guys think about it in the comment section.